What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Heel Deal Podcast. You're back with your hosts, Ben and Zach. Zach, you recovered from this crazy weekend yet?
Yeah, I'm getting there, man. I mean, my voice is still a little bit gone, but yeah, we had a heck of a weekend, so.
Gosh, and of course you all know we're referring to that crazy game against Duke, the football game instead of the basketball game this time. You know, I don't know if my heart can take it if we have a game like that in basketball next season.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. But yeah, great environment yesterday. A lot of fun. Looking forward to talking about it.
And man, Chaz Surratt with the game winner. I mean, I was a victim of the football lottery. I didn't get a ticket. You got a ticket, so I was watching it from home. And man, I was so ready for us to have fumbled that game away, just like Virginia Tech last year.
Yeah.
I was ready, but of course we'll dive into that in a little bit. But first, we're gonna do the rundown as always. So men's soccer, they're 7-5-3 overall. They've had a tie against Campbell and a loss against Louisville. So again, they're kind of middle of the pack here. They're 3-4 in the ACC, not doing too well, but we'll hopefully start ramping it up. Women's field hockey, they're still perfect, 16-0. Wow. They've beaten Boston College 3-2, and then they beat Old Dominion today 1-0. So they're not showing any signs of slowing down. They're 6-0 in the conference, best team in the country by far. And women's soccer, they clinched the ACC regular season championship today, which is awesome. They went 8 wins, 0 losses, and 1 tie in the ACC for 15-1-1 overall. So just absolutely awesome. They beat Florida State 2-0, and they beat Virginia Tech 2-0.
So that big win against Florida State.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember we mentioned that, but that was huge. They avenged their loss. It was 2 goals by one of the forwards. I can't remember her name right now, and I'm real sorry, but it was awesome. They got their revenge, and they're probably going to see Florida State again come tournament time, but I'm excited for that one. The ACC tournament for women's soccer, that starts November 3rd and goes up until November 10th, so if you're around for one of the games or just watch it on TV, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be more entertaining than our men's team, I'll tell you that right now.
For sure.
All right, so the last part of the rundown is actually a little interesting, but UNC's basketball team, they had a closed-door scrimmage against Villanova today. Yeah. So they did exactly the same thing last year, which was really good just because 2 teams get to practice together. You know, this isn't ever going on any record or anything like that. It's just, running things in more of a game simulation. So that was great. So they played for more than 50 minutes, and just to sum it up, essentially, like, it was very 50-50. They won 2 portions of the scrimmage. We won 2 portions. We shot all right in some, didn't shoot all right in others. Cole Anthony led us with 28 points, of course, and Armando Baycott with 18. Garrison with 14 and Leakey with 12, so that's pretty good, especially seeing Baycott get some points. I still really don't know how his style of play, so I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. 2 freshmen having good scrimmages against Villanova, and I love the fact that we're doing this because it's 2 top 10 teams, I think. I think Villanova's 10 and we're 9.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, great early look for us before we have our first official exhibition this upcoming Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like you said, this Friday, November 1st, we're playing Winston-Salem State. And so if you guys are around, come out to that. It's going to be great just to see some real basketball being played, that isn't just a scrimmage with our own team at late night with Roy.
Yeah, I think this game will be used to kind of test some things out, such as lineups and stuff like that, who's going to get the minutes in certain situations, but nonetheless, very exciting. I know you and I will both be there for that. So.
Oh, yeah. No, we'll definitely be there, and then we'll give you guys the rundown. If you're not going that Sunday, that'll be next Sunday. We'll have everything for you, and I guess we'll have a pretty good idea what the starting lineup's going to look like, huh?
Yeah, we'll know more after the game than we do right now. I know it's easy to say, but I think that this game will be used a lot to kind of figure those things out before we have our first big game against Notre Dame on November 6th.
Yeah, I mean, basketball season's coming around, but we are right in the middle of football season, so of course we can't forget about that, but let's dive straight into a recap of that game against Duke. One that we probably shouldn't have won, but it's hard to say that with this team because we've lost games we should have won. We've won games we should have lost. It's completely useless trying to figure out exactly what we're going to bring to the table every week almost, but we're going to keep doing it anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure. Max said after the game last night, I'm sure you saw it, Ben, it was basically like, the TV networks are going to want to keep us on every single week because we're, guaranteed to go down to the wire. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. But, yeah, I mean, all of our games except for the Georgia Tech one have come down to, one possession there at the end, and this one was certainly no different. I mean, like you said, we probably should not have gotten out of this game with a win, given how the last 2 minutes, or really it was almost like 4 minutes, went after Javante's fumble and then the subsequent drive by Duke where they converted, I know it was 1 4th down. It may have been 2 4th downs, including when you count the face mask penalty that negated our stop there about midfield. But, yeah, I mean, so many things happened in this game. I'm just really happy that for a change, we actually are the ones that got out of there with the win, and we didn't have the heartbreak this time.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was just having flashbacks of the Virginia Tech game last year when Michael Carter fumbled on the goal line, and they marched all the way back and won the game right there. That essentially happened beat for beat, where it was Javante this time. I can't tell you why he tried to dive from, like, the 2-yard line. He wasn't ever going to make it, and he ended up having the ball punched right out of his arms.
Yeah.
Man, that could have been it right there, and then our defense got bullied back all the way to our own goal line, and man, Duke, I guess, just got too cutesy with it, with like a little running back handoff that was going to be like a pop pass.
It's an interesting play. It's reminiscent of the good old Tim Tebow jump pass.
Yeah.
But I mean, Chaz Surratt, who obviously, we can't say enough good things about after yesterday and just pretty much his performance all year. But he said after the game in an interview that Jay Bateman had kind of told them to be ready for that. Apparently that was something that was seen on film it was pretty prevalent that they will run that in that situation. So, you can when you watch the highlight, it's obvious our defense is ready for that. I think we had like 3 people drop back to take away Noah Gray on that play, who was the intended receiver.
Yeah.
And the running back just isn't experienced enough to understand, how to just tuck it down and not throw the ball whenever he gets a certain look. So he just tossed it as soon as he got it, and we had guys just waiting to get it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a first down play for them. So they totally had enough time and enough downs to get something that worked, but I'm just fortunate Chaz Surratt had some decent instincts. But think about his progression as a player, man. He threw our game away a couple years ago against Duke as a quarterback.
The volleyball pass, as I've heard it called.
Yeah, exactly. With as the quarterback, and now as the linebacker, he wins the game for us with a game-clinching pick. So it's just poetic, I guess.
I guess it is, yeah. And really, both teams had instances of bad situational football down the stretch. You talk about hours where we basically have 4 cracks down there in the red zone. Really, I think we were inside the 5. It may have been on the 2, like you said. I don't exactly remember. But we had basically, 4 cracks at it to get equal amount of yards. Mm-hmm. And Javante's got to understand the situation. Just don't do anything that could risk a turnover. Don't try to jump over and fly into the end zone. I mean, that's not what you need to do there. Maybe if it's 3rd or 4th down, you take a risk like that, but you can't do that. And then to a bigger degree, Duke's situation, they were all but in the end zone right there. They had our defense worn down from that long drive, so a huge whiff on their part.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that fumble just kind of marred Javante's really good day up to that point. Javante, he was cutting up the Duke's defense right there, but again, like that fumble could have and probably should have cost us the game. But talk to me about what Duke's defense did that gave us a little bit of trouble, because Sam really didn't have. He probably had his worst game so far this season. He went 10 for 26, 227 yards. So he was throwing the ball deep, but he didn't have a good completion percentage. 2 touchdowns with 2 picks. What was going on there?
Yeah, he had the 2 touchdowns, which were both great passes.
Yeah,
the one to Bo and then the one to Daz, where Daz made. I mean, we could talk about Daz in a little bit, how superhuman he was yesterday. But what Duke was doing defensively to Sam was a lot of what maybe we could anticipate, right? Going into this game, Duke was a team that used a lot of different stunts. They moved defensive linemen around and had them walk up and move around and really make it tough for the offensive line to know not only how many people are coming, but where they're coming from. And so he was having to think about that. But also, there were many times, especially on late downs when we were, it was 2nd 10, 3rd and long, whatever, where Duke would show man coverage before the ball was snapped, and then like right before he would go through his progression, they would switch to zone. And he would have to, then process, okay, what play do I have called already? Because he's thinking about what route's going to go against man coverage. So, like, let's say he's got a slant called. Well, I'm looking for that slant against man coverage. Well, then switch into zone. You can't throw that anymore. So then now I have to throw that out of my head, get that out of my head, and then I have to find a whole nother route in basically a couple seconds to throw the ball to, all while they're sending exotic looks. So I think it's honestly more of a credit to what Duke did. I think we had a good game plan offensively. I mean, we had a lot of variety of play calls. We weren't, too dependent on one thing or the other. We ran the ball well. We threw the ball well in a lot of situations. But Duke really did give us a lot of looks that I think gave Sam some trouble. And I think we're going to maybe see a little bit of that going forward in other games. But, yeah, Duke definitely deserves some credit for what they did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, they're giving other teams some tape as to how they might be able to get Howell off his spot. But, again, Sam's just a true freshman. He's going to grow from experiences like this. And luckily they came away with the win, despite him not having an amazing game, as we're kind of accustomed to, right?
Yeah, and that's why you do that. If you've got a freshman quarterback, despite how well he's played this year, you want to show him stuff that maybe he hasn't seen in a game situation before. That's not rocket science. So Duke's ability to do that, though, is something that other teams maybe haven't been able to do yet. It's one thing to say it, but then it's another thing to go out there and do it. And they definitely, showed a lot of things yesterday that were trouble. They played really good on defense. I got to give them credit.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Played a lot better than I thought they would.
Yeah, it took some superhuman efforts, especially on Mr. Daz Newsom's part, man. Oh, gosh. I just keep thinking about that play when he caught it on the other guy's back.
Yeah.
That was just, he had an absurd game. He's really turned into our number one threat, and that's pretty great given Diami's as good as he is as a number two. Daz has had some fantastic games these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he really has. You mentioned I don't even know what to call it, the catch against the other defender's back. I mean, that was one of the best catches I think college football has seen all year, and I don't even have to look at the rest of the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of just say that. But then also the play action seam route that we've, I think, hit on most of our games this year for touchdowns that we've always found him on, and then also the fourth down conversion that ended in the fumble by Javonte later. But then at the time we were like, well, should we kick a field goal? Should we go for it? What should we do? And then they decided to go for it on 4th and 4, and he catches it for 5 yards, gets down, avoids the big hit, and we have a 4th down conversion right there. So yeah, I mean, 3 huge plays right there, but also probably more than that throughout the game. He was worth a lot yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Especially given that we lost Ratliff Williams and everything. Daz has taken up his position and some. But you mentioned when we had that choice, should we kick a field goal, long field goal, or go for 4th?
Yeah.
Talk about the kicker position a little bit. So Jonathan Kim came in. He shanked one, Lord. he shanked one pretty bad. And that was enough for Mac to say, sorry, bud, but you got to get some more practice before we're about to put you back in. So Noah Ruggles came back in, and he went 2 for 2. He had some good-looking field goals for us. So I imagine Ruggles is going to still be the starter. Hopefully this lit a fire under his butt. But, the psychology of kickers and kicking in football is just, it's unlike anything else, man.
Yeah, and I alluded to this last week, but I didn't agree with the decision to take him out in the first place. I understand that he missed 2 big ones in overtime against Virginia Tech, that at least one of them he really should have made, the one that would have won the game. I think it was in 3rd overtime. But anyway, I didn't agree with them benching him, and I think Mac kind of understood why that may not have been a good idea through one half of football. So hopefully we won't make such rash decisions anymore with our personnel, because I didn't think he ever should have lost the job in the first place. Noah played really well yesterday. I'm hoping he goes forward as our starting kicker.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering the games that we've played so far and how close they've been, I almost guarantee to you that we're going to have a chance to either tie or win a game on a field goal at some point this season.
Yeah.
And
probably most of our games left.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to get into it, especially as we talk about our next game with Virginia, but every single game is so important right now, man. Honestly, if we had lost this game, any chance of us winning the Coastal Division is essentially out the window. Into that, talk to me a little bit about just Virginia at face value, especially that defense and how we're going to match up against them.
Yeah, well, they've had some struggles as of late. They've lost their last 2 games, but they were ranked as high as number 18 at some point this year. They've kind of been up and down. Big picture. They've got a lot of weapons on both sides of the ball. They're very athletic. They have a lot of veteran players, especially on defense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's going to be tough. Despite the fact that they have lost their last 2 games, this is by no means a team that is ready to lay down. I mean, they're still, tied with us for first in the Coastal right now. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was the consensus favorite in the ACC Coastal division going into the season, just because Bryce Perkins is such a weapon. Mm-hmm. What's he done so far this season?
Well, he's had a good year so far. I mean, a lot of their offense is run off of the 21 personnel, so 2 backs, 1 tight end, read option type look, the pistol type of situation where there's 3 really guys who could end up running the ball on any given read option play. He's gotten a lot of yards off of that, and it helps the fact that he's 6'3", 215.
He's absolutely
a big dude. So he's got the ability to run hard. He's not afraid to run between the tackles. And he's got other guys around him that can help him run the ball and make plays. It's a very deceptive-looking offense. You have to be very disciplined, especially to stop them from running the ball, because there's a lot of guys, most notably Bryce Perkins and Wayne Talapapa. I apologize if that's not how you pronounce his last name, but nonetheless, those 2 guys are definitely the leading rushers for that team and the 2 biggest weapons, at least in the backfield. So, yeah, I mean, he's been great. I think the offense, it's safe to say the offense kind of runs through Perkins and his ability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is going to be a real tough game for our defensive line and our linebackers, but luckily we got, our seniors up on the defensive line this last game against Duke. I forgot to mention them earlier, but they sure had a heck of a game, man.
Yeah, they definitely did.
Strobridge was in that backfield the entire game. But, yeah, more on Virginia. This is going to be one of the most important games of the season for us, because Virginia and UNC are currently the 2 teams tied for the lead in the ACC Coastal at 3-2. Talk to me about how important this game is.
Well, I mean, it's exactly for the reason you just said, man. I mean, we're tied going into this game. I mean, we're both 3-2 in the conference, and as you guys know, it doesn't really matter about your overall record whether or not you win the division. It matters about your conference record. So, the fact that they have a game up on us overall doesn't matter right now. We're still tied for the conference itself. And the winner gets it outright at the moment. Virginia Tech is still in the race, obviously. Pittsburgh is. And even though Duke lost us yesterday, I think they're still in the race. So is Miami. Really, the only team out of it is Georgia Tech. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's tough to really make predictions right now about who's going to get out at the top. But it is nice to sit here right now, basically at the end of October, and we're playing meaningful football for the conference.
Yeah, I mean, our destiny is very much in our own hands. But it's going to take a bit. When I say our own hands, there's actually a contingency there, right?
Yeah.
And that has to do with Virginia Tech just by virtue of our 6th overtime loss against them, right?
Right, and basically what that means, guys, is that if we win outright, chances are we're gonna win the Coastal. But there is one situation in which we win every game left on our schedule and we still actually come in 2nd place in the conference, and that is if Virginia Tech wins their remaining 4 conference games on their schedule. They have 5 games left. 4 of those are in the conference, and we have 3 conference games left because we're 3-2, they're 2-2. They've had their bye week already. I think that's the reason why. But basically, if they went out, we went out because they have the head-to-head against us. They would get the conference.
Yeah, exactly. They'd go and play Clemson, I assume, in the conference championship.
I think that's safe to say right now. Yeah.
Oh, so that would be frustrating, man. How bad would that make the 6th overtime loss? It would make it even worse.
We talked about how big it was, man, and unfortunately we weren't able to make a play in that one. But I knew that game was going to be crucial because I knew how tough this stretch at home we had, of course, against Duke, and then all the drama that's going to come against Virginia next week. I knew how tough that was going to be. It was it's a big loss right there. But thankfully, despite that, we still have a chance to win. And Virginia Tech doesn't have the toughest schedule in the world going forward when we kind of look at that, but it's certainly not the easiest either, or it's not going to be too hard for them to win all of them either, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So it's reasonable to think they could win out. It's reasonable they could lose 2 more, and we get it no matter what we do.
Yeah, man, meaningful football going into November. It's crazy because on one hand you have contending for the Coastal and getting that rematch against Clemson, trying to ruin their college football playoff hopes. And on the other hand, you've got bowl contention.
Right. Yeah.
We need 2 more wins. We're 4-4. Yeah. We need 2 more wins to get a bowl. But shoot, I would love to go 8-4 this season and actually get a decent bowl.
Yeah.
So we're not playing in, I don't know, the Tostitos Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl.
Yeah, something pretty crazy they made just for 6-win teams, and it really it's definitely possible. Virginia's going to be tough, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But then Pittsburgh, we have a short week coming off this Virginia game.
Mm-hmm.
We go to them on a Thursday night, so that's going to be tough. And they've got a really good defense, and Pickett is playing great at quarterback. But
luckily, we get a little mini bye there, though.
Yeah, true. So I've actually forgot about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we do have a bye in between that, so really it isn't that much of a short week, which will definitely help us. And then Mercer. We've talked about how that may be a foregone conclusion. Unless we just, lay an egg in the middle of the field. And then NC State will always be fun, but they are in the Atlantic Division, so that doesn't carry as much weight as the other 2 games we have from the Coastal.
Yeah, you still don't want to drop an ACC game, but beating Virginia is going to be big because it, of course, sets Virginia back in the standings. Same with Pitt,
Gotcha.
It's all relative there. But let's talk more about Virginia specifically. Do they do anything weird on defense that the Tar Heels haven't seen yet? Or
well, they run a basic 3-4. So, we've definitely seen that, most notably against Virginia Tech, most recently at least. But they run a couple different weird things out of it. We're probably going to see kind of the 3-4 nickel look a lot because we run 4 wide receivers, and on film they've basically shown that in all situations when the other team shows them empty looks or 4 wide receiver looks.
Mm-hmm.
So I expect them to line up with, a couple defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, 5 defensive backs on a lot of our plays. Those linebackers are fast. They rush. They stunt. They'll send pressure from a lot of different places. They don't necessarily move their defensive linemen so much around pre-snap as much as Duke did. But they still will send guys from different areas. They'll send the safety at some point from the outside. But yeah, we've seen this kind of defense before. To answer your question, we've seen it. We've seen a 3-4. But they will send some pressure, and they're really good. Their linebackers are very good players. There are 2 leaders on defense. Actually, they're 2 inside linebackers. So that's going to make things tough.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge for sure. But especially with a depleted offensive line, who they had their struggles against Duke. But now talk to me about Bryce Perkins and that offense. I don't want to say we struggled because winning at Georgia Tech was our most handily won game, but I still think having a quarterback that can beat you with the run, beat you with the pass, beat you with a ton of different options creates that indecision in the defensive line, and we struggled with that a little bit. How do you think we match up against what Perkins brings to the table?
Right, and that's the question. Like I said, they're going to run a lot of read option and misdirection, and the number one rule when you're playing against that type of running attack is you have to be very disciplined on your man. I remember when I was in high school, Ben, an example that's kind of relevant here. It was a little bit different, the particular team, but there was a team in our conference that ran the triple option, bread and butter, and they would kill you with it. So when we would game plan for them, we would practice without a ball. And but the point of that was for every defender to know which guy you have. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter where the ball is. It was to teach you to tackle that guy. And everybody's got to trust on that defense that you do your job and they can do theirs. Because if one guy comes over to try to help on something, or you got 2 guys that take the dive running back and then there's nobody to take the pitch running back where you're supposed to have one on both, if somebody tries to do too much and go help where it's not needed or whatever, then you've got a guy that has nobody to cover him. And then you either have the running back running for 40 yards, or you've got the quarterback with nobody that has him, and then he's going equally as far. So it's about discipline, and it's about knowing which guy you have, but before the snap and then once the ball snapped. That's really what it comes down to, defending this option attack. And of course, there's a threat they could throw out of it. They have a receiver in particular that I'm really worried about, given our lack of depth at corner, which is just right now as depleted as you can get. I think yesterday Hollins is his last name. I'm not sure what his first name is. He's number 15 for us. I had never seen him on the field before. But he got thrusted into the second corner role yesterday because Storm went down with an injury on the first possession.
Yep.
So we're down to basically the last corner on our roster, given the guys that are on IR for the year.
Dude, our secondary, man, has not caught any breaks as far as the injury bug's concerned.
I know, and it's really, really tough. And Duke exploited the heck out of that yesterday. I mean, they were throwing outside the numbers against the fades all day.
Oh, dude, that back shoulder fade, they were killing us on that. And the Virginia wide receivers are like licking their chops watching that film.
I know, and Jay Bateman's doing everything he can to not have to devote safeties playing deep halves of the field to take that away, because then that opens up stuff for the run. And we've been trying to really force teams to have to throw the ball late so we can actually use our pass rushers.
Yeah.
So it's that battle where, like, what do you want to give up? What poison do you want to pick? And so far we've decided to pick our poison by playing man coverage on the outside, but I guarantee you Virginia is going to attack the outside. And the number one guy I'm worried about with that is a guy named Hassis Dubois. He is 6'3", 215 pounds, basically the same size as Perkins.
Dude, honestly, I think from a speed perspective, we match up well with wide receivers, but size is where they kill us, man. We don't have any big players in that secondary.
Yeah, we really don't.
So a 6'3", dude, he's got almost 600 yards on the season, 43 receptions.
Yeah.
Those are all more than Daz this season. He might have an absolute day. So it might be up to our offense to just keep up the pace, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get scored on here. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's a tough offense to stop. I know they've struggled as of late, but they're gonna score some points on us. We're going to have some mishaps on defense here, and I think partly due because we're having to play man coverage because of our depleted secondary, and they're going to find guys on the outside. But I mean, I think our offense can also score on this defense. But this is going to be a tougher game than Duke, and that's scary to say because we probably should have lost to Duke.
I know, and it's also, I think it's going to be a tougher game than Virginia Tech too, and we did go and lose that one. So, man, it's just we play down to our opponents, but let's see if we can play up to them.
Yeah.
As far as the ESPN's Football Power Index, they've actually got us as the favorite, 53% essentially, which is a little bit surprising, to be honest, but it's so even on paper, man. It's going to be a really, really entertaining game one way or the other, and hopefully the importance of this game is going to light a fire under our butts. But since we're running a little short on time, man, what's one thing we got to do to win this game?
Well, we've got to be disciplined on defense. We have to prevent any huge plays on the ground. And on offense, we have to find a way to continue to run the ball and throw the ball in complementary ways. We can't let Virginia, pin their ears back and get after Sam, let them confuse him like Duke did. We've got to continue to play complementary football, and everything's got to be crisp.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. There really isn't much of a margin for error, right?
No, not really.
Sam can't go sicko mode on a play and throw another interception.
Yeah. And we gotta have him start learning to throw the ball away some instead of taking sacks. We've lost a lot of yards and time because of that. So hopefully he can realize that that's important this upcoming game.
Again, like true freshman, like he'll learn eventually, but it will be super important during this game
for sure.
All right, well, give me that score prediction, Zach. Are we, man? These score predictions are almost like pointless just because the games can go any direction. We've seen that, but in your best case scenario, what's going to happen here?
Well, best case scenario, I mean, we win by anything.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest here, guys. I'm going to actually pick Virginia to win this game. If I'm being realistic, I don't want this to happen. Please don't get me wrong there. You'd think I'm crazy if I did. But I got Virginia winning this one 30-27. I think it could be an overtime game. I think it could be something really late. I don't think it's not going to be a blowout. It'll be back and forth. But I don't know if right now we have enough in the secondary to battle their receiving core and also be able to devote enough people to have assignments to cover up all of their options on offense through their read option look. So it's going to be a pick your poison day, but I just don't know if we've got it in us right now with the depleted secondary. I've got Virginia scoring 30 points, and we're not quite able to match that.
Yeah, man. It's completely 50-50 for me, honestly. Like, you could flip a coin, and, like, I'd be fine with that. I can see us winning. I can see them winning, and I honestly think it's going to come down to whether our depleted defense can be opportunistic, man.
Yeah.
1 or 2 timely turnovers, that's going to turn the tide.
I agree.
You don't necessarily have to be better, but you got to be luckier, man.
Yeah.
And I think we're owed a little bit more luck, man.
A little more?
6 overtimes gets you a lot of good karma, man. So that's why we won against Duke. I think we're gonna win this game 29-28. There's gonna be like a 2-point conversion in there somewhere. It's gonna be crazy, and I think it's gonna be our home field advantage that's gonna get us over the hump.
I hope you're right, and I hope I am wrong once again because we've been in that situation often.
Yeah, absolutely. But as always, guys, give us your takes. What do you think we got right? What did we get wrong? What are some things you want us to look at, especially when we recap this game, or what are you excited to see?
Yeah.
So hit us up on Twitter. We're at Heel Deal Podcast. But Dak, it's been a good one, man.
Yeah, looking forward to this game, guys. Battle for the Coastal continues.
Gosh, Battle for the Coastal continues. But as always, and we just saw it last weekend, go to Hell Duke.
Go to hell, Duke. Welcome home, Victory Bell.